Okay, bienvenidos. Welcome. My name is Tania Unzueta. I'm Gente's political director, and today we're going to be talking about some of the wins that we've had as Latino communities, but not just some of the wins that we've had this election, but really talking about how we have gotten here, how we've built them up, and some of the places that have been key in working this election. So, there's just as a start, there's been a lot of people talking about how Latinos went to Trump in 2020. We want to make sure to say at the top of this conversation that 70% of Latinos voted Democrat, voted for Biden, voted to get Trump out. And it's important to remember that those are actually the numbers that we're working with. This doesn't mean that our Latino community, we don't need to work on us. That's definitely not true. We need to invest in our communities. That 30% is still 30%. But we wanted to start off with the conversation of how much we've gained and how it's gotten us here. So today we're gonna be talking to three people who've been working, organizing on the ground on and off elections in Georgia, in North Carolina, and in Puerto Rico. With us from Georgia, we have Adelina Nichols, who is with the GLAR Action Network and was one of the people leading the campaign against two racist sheriffs in Gwinnett and Cobb County in Georgia. And we'll hear more about her campaign. We have Kelly Morales, who's coming to us from Siembra, North Carolina. Siembra is one of the organizations that has really built a immigrant base and has moved to work politically in the state in different ways. And we have Mariana Nogales Molinelli, who's joining us from Puerto Rico. And Mariana just won an election as part of el Partido Victoria, Movimiento Victoria. And so she'll be talking to us about that. So bienvenidas a todas.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna ask you all a couple of questions. There might be some questions specific, but feel free to jump in and be part of the conversation. And so, the first question is really just like, what are your thoughts so far about the way that the election went and the way that Latinos participated in the election? I'll give it to, who wants to start? I'll give it to Kelly. Vas para allá.
Hola a todos. Yeah, so I think, I think it's like a bittersweet feeling. I think after the election, I remember just having a couple days before the actual election day and like sitting down with members and having reflections about all the ways that we've already won. It feels like in this election, and just how pretty much the results is just kind of like, what is the landscape that we're going to be organizing in the following year? And so I think where I'm coming from, right, like now post-election results is kind of, okay, now we can at least get a feel and assess like what is our organizing landscape in the next years to come. And I think it's just, I think it's just that, right? And given that we have thrown down with all of our Latinx folks, and we're just beginning.
So yeah, thank you, Kelly. I wanted to, well, Adelina or Mariana, you can answer that question, but I wanted to also add, actually, if Mariana, if you could just tell us more about what is it that was como la atmósfera, like the environment that was being felt in Puerto Rico. Tell us a little bit more about, for people who haven't been paying attention to the election that was happening there, like what was going on in Puerto Rico on election night. You're on mute. We can't hear you. Ahí estás. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Well, in Puerto Rico, this was historical elections. As you have in the U.S., we have two main political parties, or I will not call them anymore majority parties, because now they are gathering around the 30 something percent, so they are not majority parties anymore. So a process that had been building on since probably 2012, where other parties came into the election, and the same happened in 2016. Now it all built up so that we have three segments of 30%. And now the progressive, I would say, the progressive parties are gathering 30%. And well, there is a more conservative party with religious undertones, or not undertones, fully religious views, Christian views, but uh, in other ways, we are all in the same page in terms of fighting against corruption and having a good government, and guaranteing essential services, education, the University of Puerto Rico. So I think we have the parties and also the people to back up the changes that Puerto Rico needs. Right now, we are under the Fiscal Control Board and the Promesa Act, and we are going to have to battle austerity measures that will keep on they will keep on going, and so we have a lot to fight, but we have lots of hopes and lots of people who are willing to fight. So this was really historical. Movimiento Victoria Ciudadana gathered around 15% right now, because there is a chaos of there is a chaos in the electoral count, because how do you say, briefcases with the votes keep on appearing, and initially they were 20 and now they are up to 184. So we don't know what will happen, but for now, Movimiento Victoria Ciudadana has 15%, and Partido Independentista Puertorriqueño gathered 14 or close to 15% also, and Proyecto Dignidad gather, I think it was a 9%. So you will see that there is a change in the way that Puerto Rican people are voting, including inside their parties. They are choosing people and eliminating others, but several, like for example, Tatito Hernandez was chosen, and he's a guy that justifies corruption. So we still have work to do.
Thank you. Pasándosela a Ade. So, tell us, how you feel about the election results, but I also want to hear about the local context. Like, what was at stake in Georgia for you guys?
Well, we are feeling happy, but also very tired. It was a long, long campaign, but we were able to achieve 2 victories, local big victories, which is and I think more than 2 victories, but let me explain that to you. We defeated 2 sheriffs in town, the Cobb and Gwinnett County Sheriff, which have implemented the 287G since 2007 and 2009 for Gwinnett. And for us was kind of making possible the impossible. We never thought that we were going to have this cohesive movement. Also, although we have been working to create that cohesive movement among Latinos, and has been a long work at the grassroots level, that now we can see these fruits that we can eat as well, and at the same time, I think the other victory for all of us is that our community respond to this call. No, they were in the streets voting and doing their part, which is really important. And I think it's a victory that we need to take in account, not only the winnings with the 287G counties, but as well community members and the community at large, Latinx, and with the support of some power, which is the African American LGBTQ communities as well, help us to achieve all of this. And Mi Gente, no doubt that Mi Gente was huge part of this. But also more than 60 volunteers join us in the Metro Atlanta area, plus more than 20 people was canvassing in South Georgia. So we are really happy. I think that even if we haven't achieved these defeats with the 287G, I think that we can say now that never a Georgia without the Latino community.
So, thank you, Ade. Yeah, and I should have said this at the beginning, but if people are sort of wondering why is it that we invited these three particular women to this conversation, like, you know, que tienen de especial? Part of what makes this group special is that these are folks that have been working on organizing our communities in different ways, not just trying to get elected, not just trying to push forward candidates for office. You know, the victories that Adelina just talked about are fights that have been happening in the communities for over 15, 20 years in some cases, that, you know, like, it's sometimes we say like el último clavo, right? The last sort of like nail in the coffin sometimes is the electoral vote, but those campaigns continue for a long time. So I want to go back to Kelly. And Kelly, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about the context that you guys are living in North Carolina, and this play, right, of like, how do we use elections to like move forward our demands?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have been organizing for years now in North Carolina, and there was something about the environment that we found ourselves in organizing after 2017, where we wouldn't stop getting calls through the hotline from our folks being harassed, their children in the school systems, our folks being detained, seeing an increase in 287G agreements in rural counties where they were heavy policing Black and brown folks. Yeah, and just seeing how the landscape just has completely changed, right? I think we spent the last 4 years really defending and fighting back against these systems, right? Against resisting deportation, resisting wage theft, and all the many attacks that we saw at the state level and at the national level. And if we can go back to 2017, sitting with our members and just trying to grasp what political moment we were stepping in, and having like the sense of like just watching it happen around us, right? And many of our members not being able to vote and feeling like there were no options, right, that we can actually intervene. So you fast forward to kind of what led a lot of our work in this year, and just realizing that, yeah, we're still fighting back against the system, but we are trying to have more of a say in those folks that are going to be representing us in these systems, to try to pick nuestro blanco, right? Pick our target. And really being able to create power is being able to mobilize our gente on the ground to participate and try to influence that. And so for us, that's what that looked like. And for us, it looked like more mobilizing and organizing folks sin y con papeles, with and without papers, who many of our members were not able to vote, but who still participated in voting as Mi Gente members of who we were gonna endorse, being at the decision-making tables to drive one of the biggest voter registration efforts that we saw in North Carolina, right? Led again with Latinx folks, sin y con papeles. And so for us, it's like, yeah, we're in this for the long haul of building power. And part of that means that sometimes we throw down to get our folks to those polls, right? And just trying to have a say in the landscape in which we're trying to make the change happen.
Yeah. Thank you. I kind of want to ask Mariana to come in on this. Like, why electoral politics as a tactic to change some of the stuff that's needed in Puerto Rico?
Well, I would say that I have been working with several issues for the last probably 10 years. First, it was the death penalty, then women rights, LGBT rights, freedom of expression and First Amendment rights, and the right to protest, and also environmental issues. And I think also 2017 is a year, an important year, because we had hurricanes Irma and Maria, and that moved the people to organize, not the usual organizations, but I guess community organizations, and not based on political identities or specific issues, but community organization. And that had never happened. And that developed, in my opinion, in what happened in the summer 2019. And there, all groups, all different groups, I would say, they became stronger. Environmental groups, LGBT groups were really politicized. They were really into politics, but because they know that I think everyone knows now in Puerto Rico that whomever gets elected and the people who get elected affect their daily lives and their lives literally, because we can remember the last governor that was overthrown by the people's uprising, that he said that there were only 16 people dead, and there were more than 4,000 people dead, according to studies that were later done. So they really didn't care about the people. They cared about getting elected and, I don't know, getting money and benefits. So everyone, every group organized and got stronger, and that was shown in these elections, that there was a big change in the way people voted, and young people were really motivated, and so all these fights that were being done throughout Puerto Rico for different issues got a way of getting into the elections. And I think not only me, we have, for example, Ana Irma Rivera Lacen, who is an attorney and a feminist for many decades, and she got also elected. And we have Professor Rafael Bernabe, who has been working for workers' rights and the University of Puerto Rico. So people who got to be candidates, and also in the Partido Independentista, were people who had been working with environmental issues, women rights issues, and several things. So all that got into the elections, and luckily into people who got elected. And this is important because it opens the doors of closed capital building for people and groups to come and try to move policies that are beneficial to them. So I think this is going to be really good, and we have to get involved in electoral politics also, because from there, in the place where the decisions are made, we have a say. And now we know, and I think people know, and this will be shown in the next 4 years, I guess.
Yes, thank you. I want to go back to Ade, and we'll do one or two more questions just so folks know. But Ade, Georgia right now has a national focus. Like there's a recount going on, there's a runoff going on, and we'll get to that in a second. But I want to take a minute for people to really understand what it means to have kicked out these sheriffs and what it means for the 287G program. So can you tell us just like, how long have you fighting 287G, and like, what does it mean to have one for you?
Okay. The first 287G program that was implemented in 2007 here in the state of Georgia in Cobb County. And since the beginning, we had this hotline that was created because of the amount of people that was calling for help and trying to understand what's going on. And I can tell you that thousands of people were detained in that year by the local law enforcement, which was the Cobb County Police, and put in jail and being processed for deportation, as minimal charges of broken tail light or driving without a license. It was a lot of despair. And in 2009, also we need implement the 287G program, and to this point, more than WINED comprised the more than 20% of the national numbers of people being processed for deportation. So for us was really important, but I think that the history of those have damaged profoundly communities, family separation, a rampant racial profiling all over the place. In particular, in these two counties, our community is very has a lot of population, a lot of Latinos there, and because the lack of public transportation, Latinos need to go out to do their own stuff, like taking the kids to school or buying or going to work or coming back. And this was a terrible idea, but we understand that this is kind of the guidelines and anti-immigrant sentiment that start to building up to the times that we are now. I can tell you that many of our friends, family members, in community members as well, have been processed for deportation, and people without any kind of I can tell criminal background. But even so, if the person has a criminal background, we do have a judicial system that can take care of that. So this caused a lot of problems, and for many years we were pushing these counties in different ways, mobilization, showing up to the commissioners' meeting, social media, the Twitter storms, Facebook, trying to organizing protests outside, creating conditions. But the part which is like very, very important is that we just add to the general sentiment against Trump and identifying, these two sheriffs as a copycat of the federal government. And I think that if they lose, the only responsible of those are themselves, in terms of because they never attempt to understand the diversity and the changes that were happening in our own communities as well. So I was surprised, now getting into this new world, which is electoral politics. Getting into this, we are new, but we have been working since 1999, building these comités populares and organizing, and it's paying off in many ways. And do believe that we part of Mi Gente and GLAR, and along with Siembra, kind of we are making the road in terms of breaking the patterns of traditional electoral traditions. That for us is very important that to understand that you need to be connected with community. It's not about just a temporary situation in terms of elections, but we need to be in a sustained movement or working in communities. And I don't know, I have 20 years working around, but I think this is important to understand that we are here, and if we don't have anything outside, we need to look inside. And inside means community, helping and pushing back racial profiling and attending the local needs in it could be in the Metro Atlanta area, or it could be in the rural areas of Georgia.
Thank you, Ade. And sticking with the question of ICE, I don't know if a lot of people know that, like, actually Adelina and Kelly share an ICE office, meaning that the same ICE office covers North Carolina and Georgia. It's one of the worst offices in the country. And Kelly, you guys are already getting ready for potential pushback and stuff. Can you tell us like what's happening, what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually getting prepared, right? Because it has been a pattern that ICE, especially in the offices that Ade and I are working in the South in general, they use retaliation, right, against our gente. And so an example of this in the previous election, Siembra supported many of our Black and Brown organizations who actually had a great role in getting over 3 Black sheriffs elected into many of the counties that we're in, including Forsyth County, Guilford County, Orange County, right? And it was like this historical moment of Black sheriffs that were running on a platform that were vocally standing up against ICE collaboration and were vocally saying that they were not in support of 287G. In retaliation, we saw one of the most anti-immigrant bills that we had seen in a couple years in North Carolina, HB 370, which like forced, would have forced, right, all sheriff departments in North Carolina to work with ICE. We were able to win that fight, and that didn't become a law. But I think all of this to say is that we have continued evidence throughout the years that ICE does work like that. We know that we can't trust the tactics that they use, and we know that they like to use retaliation. And we know, in a huge part, and we are learning from the amazing work that Ade and our compas Aglar have been doing and the victories that they have seen. We're taking notes and admiring from NC. We know we just got to be prepared, right? And so that means we already started door knocking, right? So a lot of our folks that had the Mi Gente shirts on that as members we threw down in the campaign, we're now also on the grounds door knocking to make sure that folks just know what to do, know their rights. And that again, like, we know that the solution is not ever going to be presented in any party in this country. And we know that means that we have to take care of us. And regardless of quién está in the White House, starting in January, we know that that's real, and we're preparing for that fight.
Thank you. Mariana, I want to ask you about también the path going forward. What does that look like for you? What are some of the roadblocks that you see facing, given this changes in Puerto Rico?
Well, I think the main obstacle to Puerto Ricans in general is the Fiscal Control Board and Promesa Act. And so that will be a big fight because we have heard from the people at the Fiscal Control Board that they want to fire more public employees, and they want to reduce people's retirement pensions. And they also have an agenda of privatizing the electrical and the water systems. So, and also we had probably around 400, 500 schools closed, and so we are seeing a lots of obstacles coming from the Fiscal Control Board. But also, we have if Pedro Pierluisi remains as the governor-elect. He used to be the attorney and the legal advisor for the Fiscal Control Board. So we have that as a governor, And but the good news is that he has only a 32% of votes. So the majority of Puerto Ricans did not vote for the attorney of the Fiscal Control Board. And so we are going to have to, I think this is good. This is not an obstacle. We are going to have to work with the other parties and get agreements that have to be directed by the benefit of the people and not the political agenda of each party. And I think all these conversations will lead to better results, and we are sure that everything that we do for the people, we have the people backing us up, and they are ready to get out on the streets and make pressure and push for what they want. And also and that will be a new panorama in politics in Puerto Rico, because people know now, they know for sure that whenever they go out in the street, they can get even a governor out of office. So people know the power they have.
Esto. Um, Thank you for that. Ade, and as I was saying earlier, you guys are now headed to a runoff. The election in Georgia on January 5th might decide the balance of power in the Senate in over here. So yeah, like tell us about that. How are you feeling?
I am not feeling, but I can say that this will be an uphill battle, no, una lucha cuesta arriba for all of us. We do know that we are not going to be the only ones on the streets at this moment in time. But what we do know is that we have the conviction that things need to be changed. And I believe that we are ready. We just have like a week off, but we are going out in the following week until the January 5th, with the belief that only community power, people power, is the one that can make changes, and hoping that Los Reyes Magos bring us a beautiful gift like no 2 seats on the Senate. That would be the most beautiful gift in the history of all Latinos here in the United States. No te podemos escuchar.
Gracias. Mi gente is going to be throwing down with GLAR action on the Senate race. And so look out for, we're already starting to do text banks and phone banks next week. And we're going to try to reach every Latino in Georgia to make sure that they vote in this election. Pero pues conclusiones, going to conclusions. No sé, pues what should people be, how should people be thinking about this moment? What should people be doing right now? Quien quiera.
Okay, if you want, I can go. I think like before this last election, when people needed to go out and vote, Tanya, I think that we understand and we have grew in this culture with, they say that the vote is your privilege, but as well is that you are free to vote for whatever or whoever you want to vote. I do believe that the vote is right now in time is a social responsibility in it. It has a social responsibility in it. And we shouldn't think that just in this, in what I want, but most important is what do we want as a community. Because at the end of the day, kind of the lessons from 2016 is that many progressive groups were not agreeing with any of the candidates, and they decide to turn around and decide that was not their choice. But if you call yourself a progressive, Where is your social responsibility on this? No, you are thinking of yourself or your communities, or you are thinking on yourself, on or on the vulnerable people that need the support. And I think this is a time to question and to reflect on that we do have a social responsibility, and our vote need to have that in mind every single time that we go and cast a ballot.
Gracias, Ade. Mariana or Kelly?
Okay, I think, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, I think, well, in Puerto Rico, we have lots of good things to look for, and but that means that we have to work a lot. And I just wanted to say, in terms of the importance of Latinos and other minorities to vote in the U.S., I think I agree with that, that it's a social responsibility, because for example, I am not a fan of Biden, but Trump was something terrible. So I think it was good that he's gone. I really celebrate that. I would have preferred something else, but I think anyway, even with Biden in office, I know it will be a lot of work. And I think in Puerto Rico, we are very close to the diaspora. And we also have these conversations of politics in the US, and what they have to do. We have been very worried about the safety of Puerto Ricans who have also been subjected to showing their papers and discrimination and arrests even. So my heart goes out to you, and I want to thank you for your work in the US and with your communities and Latino communities.
Thank you, Mariana, y felicidades. We haven't said felicidades por la victoria.
Yes.
Kelly, te la pasamos.
Yeah. Y felicidades at both of y'all for kicking butt and just doing all the amazing work on the ground. I think for me, it's like there were so many wins, right? And the election results nationally is definitely one of them. And I think for me, I'm walking away from this experience and from this hard work, looking at this like, we did that, y'all. Like nuestro pueblo, our people did that, you know? Black and brown people put in the sweat, put in la lucha to get the results that we need to keep each other safe and to be able to live a life of dignity, you know? And this is the beginning, you know, this is one of the tools that we have in our toolbox. And this is one of the many things, and we're just getting started. And there's so many other opportunities that are going to be upcoming. And you know, it's our responsibility certainly to get our gente out to vote. And it's also our responsibility, you know, as we can see when we show up for each other and when we organize, all these beautiful things happen, you know, and we're paving that road because we've proven, no, con todo esta campaign that we have the power.
Yes, we do.
Eso.
We have.
And eso, that we have the power. That's a good note to end on. I did want to give a shout out to the folks from Arizona, from Puente Human Rights Movement, and our Arizona crew who couldn't be here. They also celebrated a victory, even though the count isn't official either yet. But Arizona, you know, looks like it's turning blue, and that also has to do with years and years of work against Joe Arpaio, against the racist policies of the state, working with gente con y sin papeles, as Kelly was saying, and being able to win some of those victories. So even though they couldn't be here, wanted to shout them out as well. And yeah, la lucha sigue, como decimos. You know, we're off to Georgia to fight on the Senate races. Again, like if people want to volunteer, we encourage you to look up those links. I think they've posted them below. Y invitation to folks who want to be part of a political home, who are interested in organizing with us, Chicanos, Latinx, Boricuas. We invite you to be part of Mi Gente. Mi Gente is an organization of people like us that you're seeing right here, like Kelly, like Adelina, who've been organizing often for years before Mi Gente existed, and who've come together to really try to show the strength that the Latino community has and can have if we organize together. So check us out at migente.net. Pero con esto, muchas gracias. Gracias a Adelina Nichols de Glad Action, gracias a Kelly Morales from Siembra, North Carolina, y gracias a Mariana Nogales Molinelli del Movimiento Victoria Ciudadana en Puerto Rico. Gracias, compañeras.
Gracias.